There's some things that are immoral about, manipulation, etc. Is it immoral to, manipulate or gamify the dating world?
There's definitely a big chunk of game that is shadow realm, but there's also an element of game that is not lying at all. It's just maximizing your own charm. I don't think it's immoral either way. I think game is not only morally acceptable, but it's actually a requirement.
I don't think it's an imperative in the way that the red pillars say, hey, you need to have intercourse with at least 100 women before you get married. So that's taking what we just said and Bikram yoga stretching it to way out of there. You know what I mean? Right. Just like you said, dating is not an interview, but an interview is not an interview. If you apply that, think about it like that.
And I'll keep zooming out. Nothing is what it seems, right? There's no human interaction that's just
everything is nothing.
Yeah. There is no human interaction that's just like perfectly straight.
There's some things that are immoral about, manipulation, etc. Is it immoral to, manipulate or gamify the dating world, right? So talking about that aspect of it.
Great. Yeah, so game, right, is like a red pill term when it comes to dating, when it comes to women. Obviously, as always, we're pretty much talking from a man's perspective here. So, women watching, if first of all, God bless you for being like the one woman who's watching this video. But anyway, we're talking about men. So men dating women, is it morally correct or is it immoral to game them? What is game? Let's answer that first. What is game?
Yeah.
Actually, let me have you answer that because maybe you'll.
Yeah, game in my mind is manipulating truth, like withholding truth, while trying to maximize your outcomes with respect to the dating, the paradigm of the relationship. So that would be something like, oh hey, she sent me a text, right? And I'm going to gamify this by not immediately telling her what I feel, but instead maybe agree and amplify. Maybe I'll do some different strategy. And in that mind, that's, yeah, you can say that's a meta cognition. It's a meta theory of it, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of a short answer. But.
Okay, I like it. I think I agree with you. I'll expand a little bit. There's definitely a big chunk of game that is shadow realm. If you've seen our recent clip on the shadow realm, you'll know what I'm talking about with that. Yeah. So there's a huge chunk of game that is withholding truth and sort of presenting a more rosy picture, if you will. Not necessarily lying, but just sort of spiffing up the truth. But there's also an element of game that is not lying at all. It's just maximizing your own charm, Right. So, and I now in either respect, and the reason I think it's good that we framed it this way is I don't think it's immoral either way. I think, in fact, my view, and I'm a Christian saying this, so hopefully I get some credibility for this. I think game is not only morally acceptable, but it's actually a requirement. I think you should be doing it. I think if you're not maximizing your game, you are not maximizing your ability to find a wife, which means you're not maximizing your ability to reproduce and like
2.1
continue your have 2.1 children and continue the Earth's population and continue God's glorious creation, which is what you're called to do. It's my view that's your highest calling on Earth, unless you're called to something else, but that's very rare. So I think game is a moral imperative, and it's specifically because just simply saying the truth, just blurting out whatever the truth is not morally correct all the time, right? You need to know when is it the right time to divulge the truth. Now, I'm not telling you to lie. Don't lie, but not telling the truth is not equivalent to lying, right? You see what I'm saying? So I'll let you expand from here, but I could say
no, and I like that. I like where you framed that, because to me it's interesting. You said imperative. I don't think it's an imperative to in the way that the red pillars say, hey, we need to have intercourse with 1,000 women is like literally some of them say, I think there's been a guy that says you need to have intercourse with at least 100 women before you get married. I think somebody said that before in the red pill space. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Yeah, that's insane.
But to me, like that's taking what we just said and Bikram yoga stretching it to way out of there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas all we're saying is, and I think we both agree, is that you can't go into this with a naive perspective, right? You got to go into this with an understanding of, let's use this example. Let's say you had a friend at school and he says, hey, we're going to meet at the flagpole and we're going to play chess. Best 2 out of 3. next Friday, and the winner of that is going to get a free pizza. You're gonna have to buy me pizza if I beat you best of 3, and you've never played chess before, and you say, yeah, well, your game on. Are you gonna go into that without studying what a pawn, what a rook, how to castle, all this and that and the other? Or are you gonna go in blind and say, let me just do what I feel is best? I'll move this piece because it looks like it could be, and this one looks bigger. No, you're gonna go in and dissect and say, okay, there's a game. Let me gamify this.
Yeah.
And in that context, the answer to the question, is it morally wrong to gamify chess? Hell no, it's not morally wrong. It's actually imperative that you do it, right?
Yeah.
So if you map that one-to-one on relationships, and again, not to dehumanize relationships, but I'm going to dehumanize them so that we rehumanize them later.
Yeah.
You need to dehumanize the relationship from the aspect of, is it a game? It is a game in some way, and the game is, hey, I need to, at end game 2.1, how do I get there? Okay, I need to actually figure out how to present myself to women. Because there's something in you. You have that dog in you, and she wants that dog. So how do you unleash that dog? Well, it's not by just saying, yeah, I feel like The Notebook was okay, 6 out of 10, but Rotten Tomato, no, that's nowhere, right? What really is figure out the game of dating, right? The art of dating is a thing. It's a science. It's a philosophy. It's a philosophical question. It's everything, right? But that's where I'm going with that. And don't get sucked into the manosphere and say I need to OnlyFans 100 women. Don't do that. But there is that aspect of, yes, it is a game, and no, it's not morally wrong to gamify the situation, right? Yeah. So obviously there's nuance. So
so I love what you said, the art of dating. I love that because it's not a science. It is an art. And there are aspects of it that are very logical and like straightforward, which may be a little more scientific, but ultimately it is an art. So another way to say that this is I believe a moral imperative is because when you're dealing with love and relationships, you're not in the realm of the rational, right? There is rational concerns, like, if you want to have kids, you need to find a woman who's capable of having kids. She's young enough to have kids or whatever, and you guys agree on where you want to live and I don't know, stuff like that. There's rational, practical concerns for sure. But when you're talking about love, it's not a rational question, right? People love you because of how you make them feel, right? It's not a question of logically this person is fulfilling these check boxes, right? We've criticized that before. That doesn't lead to love. It has nothing to do with it. You can come along into a woman's life and she'll have this idea, this checklist in her mind of like, this is what the perfect man will look like. This is who I'm looking to get married to. And you don't fit any of those check boxes, but you make her feel a certain way and you're in, right? Period, end of story. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Now, as you said, we can yoga stretch it and make it very evil very quickly, right? Because you can do that. Like, let's say you have no intention of marrying this girl, and you just want to get her in bed, and so you're putting on a mask to do that. Of course, obviously that's evil, right? But those are two separate actions. You're using a tool that God gave you, which is your reason and your humor and your charm, and you're using that for evil. That's on you, right? You can use any tool for any purpose, and to me, game is a tool. So yeah, you have to treat it like an art. Understand that you're trying to trigger certain emotions. You're trying to trigger certain feelings. It's not a logical question. And really that's one of the principles of game I just gave it to you. Like if a woman's asking you questions, this is not an interview. I go on a date, it's not a freaking interview, right? We're having a good time. Like if you're going to sit there on a date and just ask her a series of questions, like you're reading off a piece of paper, you're never going to see her again, right?
Love that.
It needs to be fun. Right, it's not rational. It's not logical. It's not like a step-by-step thing. So
love that you said that because I do want to. As I always do. And again, sorry for interrupting you here.
No,
but
you're good.
I always interface dating with interviews. It's actually funny you bring that up because I always think, okay, hang on a minute. Just like you said, dating is not an interview, but an interview is not an interview. If you apply that, think about it like that. So if you're in an interview, think of it as a date, kind of, in a weird way, right?
Absolutely.
Don't think of it inappropriately as a date if it's a female interviewer, but think of it as a date where you're saying, "Hang on a minute, how do I pass this shit test?" Yeah. They ask you let's say you're let's say it's software engineering, and they ask you something like, they look at your resume and they see something that you wrote on your resume and they say, "Well, are you technically, because what you wrote here, is it technically a framework, or can you explain that a little better?" That guy here, right there, he's doing the same thing that maybe a woman would ask you on a date, where they say, well, so they'll give you a shit test, and you just look back and you handle it the same way. You say, yeah, frameworks or whatever, frameworks are frameworks and this, that, and the other. But hey, let me ask you this. Let me pressure flip it on you and say, hey, what would day 4, day 5 look like when I'm at your company? and how would I, how would I involve myself in that, in the high stacks, low stacks, etc. For
Mhm.
day 5, day 6, and then how long would it take me to get kind of fully on board to where I actually add value to the company? Flipping it way, so you took the question and flipped it way out of scope for what he was talking about, but you're already in now in their frame, so no longer in their frame, they're in your frame now. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's interesting.
That's funny that you said that. An interview is also not an interview. 100% right. Right. Like, and I'll keep zooming out.
Yeah.
Nothing is what it seems, right? Like there's like there's no human interaction that's just
Everything is
completely,
nothing.
yeah. There is no human interaction that's just like perfectly straightforward like that, and you shouldn't treat
Yeah.
them like that. Like you should treat every human interaction as like as an opportunity to like have fun, right?
Yeah.
That's like a key element of not just game, but like even interpersonal relationships, right? And again, how it, hopefully that's clear why that's morally good. It should be clear that that's morally good for me to go to every interaction trying to have a good time, right? And
Oh
like,
yeah.
because there's many ways to have a good time, like be funny, to have jokes, that's one way, right? But there's maybe like a nice deep intellectual talk like Tony and I are having right now. I'm having a great time, like, but we're not like having a comedy hour, but I'm still having a great time. uh,
Yeah.
and maybe you're just doing activities together. Like that's another fun way to and you're not even really talking that much, but you're just doing stuff together. See, there's many ways to like have a good time and to enjoy your presence, and to enjoy someone else's presence, and it is morally good. Right? That's really what this is all about, man. Like that's what this life is all about: is to be around other people, to form strong relationships, and enjoy those bonds. Right? So I think that really cuts to why this is morally good, and I'm glad you brought it there because I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking of that originally, but it's funny.
It is interesting when you
Yeah.
said.
What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out this clip from the Maneuver Life podcast. If you enjoyed it, consider liking and subscribing and leaving a comment, even if it's just because you want to tell us how dumb you think we are, but especially if you want to tell us how much you agree with what we were saying. We have weekly uploads every single Monday, long form conversations just like this one. So consider checking it out one way or the other. Thank you so much for your attention. You have a good rest of your day.